So you just got your Model Y, but how much protection do you really need? We're gonna find out in today's video. As a wrap shop, we of course try to sell you the best protection, but we also try to be as honest as possible. So we wanted to break down all the types of protection that we sell, but also offer. So what we're gonna do in this video is we're gonna break down kind of ease of install, how much level of protection it actually has, and then what's actually protected behind these kits. And these are common things that most wrap shops will sell. Other than our impact kit that we design in-house, those are typically not something worth even a wrap shop to do, just because it's too small of a job, right? So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start, and then we're gonna walk around and then pretty much tell you why you also need to protect. And I think in today's climate, it's like even more reason to protect, right? So first off, what we're going to start with is what we call the impact PPF. And this is the most important part, because if you look at a Model Y, it's fairly flat, especially right here. So we actually just installed this. That's why some of the edges aren't fully rolled over. But basically, the impact PPF just covers right here, right? This is still angled like so it can deflect a little bit better. So it goes all the way across here, and then it does stop right here, and it goes around the tow hitch, also protects the tow hitch. But that's what the impact PPF. So if you're on a budget, but you do a lot of highway driving, you live in a state like Florida or Tennessee where there's just a lot of bugs, especially during the summer, this is a really easy way. Or maybe you're just going on a road trip and you just want to protect this part. You're unlucky, you always get rock chips, always tends to be right around here. So this is a really easy, this is under $100. You can do this by yourself. And this is such a good way. I think this is something that most owners should do at the least, right? So that's what we call Impact PPF kit. And this is super easy to install. Probably takes about 15 minutes or so, or even less. And just because of it doesn't go over the edges and stuff, and if you're wondering, it's like, why not go over? The moment you start going edge roll and all that, it just complicates the install. And that's why we made it like the way it is. So it's absolutely easy, super simple to install. And the best amount of protection for what you can pay for, right? So that's what we call the impact PPF. The second one that we would recommend is also what we call partial PPF. And partial PPF is actually an industry standard term that they typically say. And for some reason, they used to call this the bikini, which is, I think, kind of weird, but that's what they used to call it in the industry. We just call it partial because it's partial. And what I mean by that is, if you look at this, the line stops here. I'm not a huge fan of this, but then we have it perfectly lined with the fender and it just stops right here. It still protects a good amount, but it's the most front-facing area, which is going to be right here. And then also, it protects the whole bumper all around. So the partial includes the fender, the lights, the bumper, all across the whole bumper, not this little small one. That's only the impact. And you also get the mirror right here, which covers the whole thing. This is actually a one piece that we developed in-house as well. There's a seam right here. This is actually a matte variation that we just finished. But that's what a partial PPF is. So this is significantly cheaper than doing, like, for example, a full PPF. Oftentimes though, if you're gonna do this, why would people do this? Well, for do-yourselfers, it's a lot easier because if you think about it, the stretch happens in this fender right here, all across this area. So by doing just here, first of all, you have a lot of exit points, right? So PPF is actually installed via wet application. You have a lot of soap underneath it. You can exit this way, you can exit that way, you can also exit this way. So there's just a lot of exit points, which makes it far easier to actually install. Same thing for the hood. The hood is a pretty large piece, but because it's a partial, it becomes from a 60-inch by 48-inch down to like, what is this, like 18 inches by 48 inches, right? So it becomes significantly easier to handle, which means that you have a lot more time to work with. You don't have dry spots. So this is a really good option, in my opinion, for do-yourselfers that maybe they just want to get started. The thing I wanted to point out is we actually put gloss over our matte PPF protection. Normally, shops will not do that. We did an instructional that we had to do. So the difference when you do partial isn't going to be this drastic, right? Both of them are going to be gloss, but it looks pretty bad because this is going from gloss to matte like so, right? So it's not going to be that. It's literally going to go gloss to gloss. The lines that is actually a con, and a problem that you will have is sometimes dirt likes to sit right there. So that just means that you have to clean your car a little bit more frequently, get a little detail brush and go around those edges. But again, you saved a lot of money, so those are pros and cons. But you might want to do it and your confidence gets higher, and then you're like, man, I wish I would have went full, right? Or like the front end. So that gets me to the next point. We're going to talk about the most popular option and the highest recommended, in my opinion, as a shop, and also do-yourselfer. We typically recommend doing at least the front end, right? So it's called the front paint protection kit. And basically, the front is the whole hood, right? The whole fender, the whole bumper, the whole lights, and then the mirror. So that's a typical what a shop would recommend. We typically also recommend, if you're gonna do the front end, that means you've already committed to actually doing it, either with a shop or with a do-yourself kit. We also recommend doing the rockers. And here's the thing, it's not really the rockers, I guess it's part of the doors. Let me rephrase that. Basically, you see we didn't quite clean up our car yet. This was literally one drive, and this is what happened. We got some rainy weather, we got some mud all over. It kicks back, you see this? It kicks back into this bottom section, right? So we do call it the rocker kit. It's, I guess, more of a door kit. However, what that means is we typically sell this kit that goes right underneath this body line right here, all the way to the backside. So that makes sure these cars are fast. It does have an insane amount of torque. So when you're doing that and you're having fun, you're slinging a bunch of stuff underneath. And the paint is actually a little bit thinner at the bottom portion. So that's also the reason why, if you're gonna do the front kit, I mean, honestly, even if you do the partial or the impact, the rocker is a highly recommended option to do the protection. So that's kind of like a bonus. If you ever had it in cars, those are the areas that gets chipped pretty much at first, other than the front end. So that is a highly recommended. And then, I think a lot of people that drive Teslas like to go really fast, 0 to 60, and just book it, right? So that's a highly recommended. So the last protection plan that is out there is going to be the full paint protection film kit. And that is very extensive. It takes a lot longer, uses way more material because it's a whole car. But basically, you're wrapping everything that you can wrap, right? So everything that I talked about in the front end, you do the mirrors, you do the pillars, you do the doors, you do the rear, everything is pretty much done. So typically, I think wrap shelves will take about a week, 3 to 5 days if it's faster, which means you'll be out of a car. But if you were doing it do-yourself, you could do it at home. You're still out of a car in terms of, I recommend, you could do it on a weekend, but that also means that you can't drive it back and forth, right? You prep it, and then you want to sit down and then work over it a few days, right? It does take a lot of time. It is a lot of work. And for us, like in Tennessee, like our parking spots are huge. So I feel like 90% of the time, I just recommend like the do-yourself front kit, right? Or just the front kit, PPF, and then the rocker. And then also adding like the trunk ledge, because I do use the trunk a lot, and we'll get back to that in a second. But if you're in a state like California, and I think it's a little bit tighter in a lot of the areas, more dense population in LA or San Francisco, sometimes I recommend like the doors, because the doors, like it's so tight. You get door dings. Just by protecting that, you can actually avoid that. So I think it depends also regionally where you are. And also it depends on your cost, right? Are you gonna go do yourself, or are you gonna go pro? But it's a huge difference. I mean, you're looking at, I think on average, between like $2,000 to $2,400 for doing a front end at a shop. And then you go to, doing a full wrap, or even a matte kit, you're going from like $55,000 to $7,000. So it's a giant difference in terms of price. So you have to kind of gauge that. I think you could kind of mitigate that if you did go do yourself, but also it's going to take a lot more time to actually finish. So let me talk about the rear, since I did mention that. And I think we do have an install right here. This is our do yourself. We haven't rolled over the edges just yet, but this is the trunk ledge. It's not really the trunk ledge, it's a lift gate right here. So it's a lift gate protection. Here's what happens, you're like, oh, I'm talking to someone, and this thing can hit something, right? So this area, and then you're kind of rubbing, and this is the first line of defense right here. So you do want to protect it. I do love the new design where you're working on plastic trims right here, the diffuser. So you don't have to worry too much about that kind of that damage, but highly recommend installing at the least right there so you could protect, protect your trunk liftgate, right? Our goal is to educate you and give you the information that you need to make the best decision based on your budget, based on the level of protection that you want, also based on the region of where you live. I think that's also an important factor. So hopefully that was really helpful in the ways that you can protect your Model Y and your Tesla. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. We love making these videos for you, so click on the subscribe button and we'll see you later.